Do you want to wake up feeling like you're stepping into who you're meant to be, into the best possible version of you? What if I told you that the key to your best life, health, and happiness are all around you? You just have to find what works for you. I'm Hope Pedraza, and I believe that there isn't just one way to live a healthy and meaningful life, and that all you need is a little inspiration to make changes that last from the inside out. Each week, I'll be sharing tangible tips and inspirational interviews to help you on your journey. These are the steps to take to improve your life and live with purpose. This is Hopeful and Wholesome. Hey y'all, welcome back to Hopeful and Wholesome. I am your host, Hope Pedraza, and I'm bringing a topic to you today that I have been kind of diving into myself. And it's something, honestly, when I start talking about it, it sounds like such just the most simplest thing. Simplest, is that a word? The most simple thing. And kind of like a duh thing, but when I really dive into it, you're going to be like, oh, maybe I'm really not doing that. And I've really been diving into myself and just kind of natural rhythms, right? Natural hormonal rhythms, energy rhythms, just the natural rhythm of life, and kind of bringing in this understanding that life and the way we, and I say we as in we, like the collective, don't operate in a linear fashion as much as society or masculine paradigm wants to tell you that we do. We really don't. And so I'm bringing in this topic today to talk about living kind of in accordance with your body's natural rhythms. So think about this to kind of bring this into kind of something you can relate with. If you've ever felt energy crashes in mid-afternoon, no matter how much coffee you drink, if you ever feel like your body is fighting against your schedule, right? This is kind of what I'm talking about, where you just feel like your body is not in sync with like the time, right? The time in life. So this isn't an indication that your body's broken or anything is wrong per se, but it's really just trying to tell you that you are not following your body's natural rhythm. And there are nuances here where it can be different for everyone. So if you've ever found yourself like you're someone who says like, I'm a morning person, like I have the most energy in the morning, or if you're someone who you're like, well, I'm kind of a night owl, I have more energy in the evening, right? This is kind of your natural rhythms. Now, yes, some of this can be environmental. It's kind of like that nature versus nurture thing. So some of this is environmental, but a lot of this it's physiological, it's biological. And when you learn to work with those rhythms, like the natural rhythms of your body instead of against them, you can open this whole new world of energy and focus and balance and just harmony in your body. So today I want to dive into this topic of chronobiology, just like it sounds. The science of these biological rhythms that regulate everything from your sleep to your hormones to your energy, digestion. This is especially relevant for women, which is why I've been diving into kind of all this like cyclical living and rhythms of life, because our hormonal shifts throughout life, right? Our hormones shift throughout the month. We're on this 28-day hormonal cycle, but they also shift throughout life. And we have these very distinct hormonal I was going to say cycles, but it is a cycle, but these very distinct seasons of our hormones throughout life, right? From our monthly cycles to perimenopause, menopause, right? We have these shifts throughout our life. So this can either amplify the benefits of this aligned rhythms, or it can make the consequences of misalignment even worse, right? Where our body really starts to rebel against these rhythms that we're trying to force our body into when it's really supposed to go in this other rhythm. So chronobiology, let's talk about what that is. Chronobiology, just like it sounds, the study of your body's internal clock, right? And it's really interesting to think about this, how much of your health is governed by these rhythms, right? These natural rhythms that we can't see. So your body's, as an example, your body's metabolism actually fluctuates throughout the day, with your ability to digest and process food peaks around midday, which is why I'm going to talk about this in a second. Your biggest meal of the day, and you've probably heard this before, really should be in the middle of the day, right? This is how your metabolism, and it kind of, your metabolism naturally kind of wanes off as we get into the latter part of the day. So I know that a lot of people don't always understand these rhythms, or not understand, but the importance. And you might recognize this. So think about if you've ever, this is a really funny example that's just coming into my head, but I've had conversations with my clients about this before. You have a natural poop schedule, right? Maybe you do, maybe you don't. A lot of people, you are very regular. You know, at this time of the morning, every day, I'm going to have to poop, right? That is your body's natural rhythm. This is an example of this chronobiology. Also, think about how that shifts. So, if you're traveling, for example, especially if you're traveling across time zones and it's throwing off your body's natural clock, right? It's just throwing off your circadian rhythm. And then it not only throws your sleep schedule off, but now your poop schedule is off, right? You'll know what I'm talking about. You'll know what I'm talking about. So, this is just an example of your body has this natural schedule, this natural rhythm that it's in, right? And when we do things to throw it off, it really can, and especially when you're doing this over, chronically, doing it all the time, it really can affect how your body is functioning. And I think sometimes you don't realize how much this does affect and disrupt how your hormones are functioning and your gut, and it's affecting your energy, your weight, your mood. There's so many things that it's affecting. So let's look at circadian rhythms. I know we've heard that word before, and this is kind of one of many pieces of chronobiology that we're talking about. Circadian rhythm is your body's natural internal 24-hour clock, right? So it's regulated by light and by darkness, and it dictates everything from when you feel awake, when you feel sleepy, when your digestion and hormone production are at their peak. All of this is dictated by your circadian rhythm, whether you believe that or not, but whether you feel that or not. I mean, so a lot of times I think we underestimate how much the circadian rhythm really does affect your hormones and your digestion and all that, because it's not, yes, it is about your sleep wake cycle, but it's so much more than that. It's really like your body's operating system. It's like the on off switch. And when we get out of this circadian rhythm, it really can affect our hormones. This is an interesting fact I want to share with you. Women's circadian rhythms are slightly shorter than men's, not much, only about by 6 minutes shorter on average. Studies have shown this. And this might explain why some women feel more prone to wake up earlier in the morning, or you might feel out of sync with if maybe your partner or your spouse who has a later sleep schedule. There are typically more women who are like early risers than men, or it's easier. And not to say there's more, but it's oftentimes easier for women than men. So our natural circadian rhythm is just a little bit different. And if you think about this, you think about if you consider yourself, especially if you consider yourself a morning person and you've had to work late nights before, or you're working, later than your body is telling you to, right? A lot of times you wake up feeling groggy and irritable, your digestion feels off. I know there was periods of my life too where it's like I would just work like right up until the last bit, like my computer in bed. I'm like, I gotta finish this thing. And I went through it was kind of like in that burnout phase of my life where I literally was working all day, every day. I would feel that, and you wake up and I can't say I felt groggy per se. I don't know. I'm just one of those people that can function off a little sleep, but I definitely felt the effects for me would hit later in the day. Like I'd wake up feeling like, okay, my digestion was off for sure. It was like this constant feeling of my IBS would flare up a lot, like constipation, bloating all the time. For me, it would hit later in the day. So later on in the day, you kind of hit this wall where you're like I don't know if I can keep going, right? So this is an example of this, right? And it's why really understanding your circadian rhythm is so critical, not just for sleep, but also for regulating your hormones, estrogen, progesterone, because especially like the late night situation, it's going to affect your melatonin production. I'm going to get to that in just a second. But I think this is especially important to understand for women over 30 because as we age, our hormones start to shift. Obviously, I think we're all aware of that. We're all experiencing that. And it's more subtle at first, and then the later into your 30s and into the 40s and beyond, it's more dramatic, right? There are more dramatic changes. And so these shifts can really amplify the effects of being misaligned with your circadian rhythm. So let's think about cortisol, for example, your stress hormone. We all know what cortisol is. Cortisol naturally peaks in the morning and then it tapers off at night. So your cortisol is your get up and go hormone. It's the hormone that's going to wake you up in the morning and get you up and going, and is why so many of the women that I work with have trouble in the morning, and we do their labs and it's like we see their cortisol pattern. Well, no wonder, like your cortisol literally is like barely there in the morning, and so you're having trouble with the get up and go, right? So if you're staying up late or also like eating too late at night. So you're asking your digestive system to work at an hour where it's like, well, I kind of like went to bed, but you're asking me to wake back up and digest your food, right? Your cortisol levels are going to stay elevated, which not only disrupts your sleep because it is the get up and go hormone, it's your wake up hormone, but it can also affect your progesterone production, right? Cortisol is made in the adrenals, progesterone is made there as well. And so it's going to affect a lot of these other hormones. And low progesterone can affect to lead to irregular cycles, anxiety, fertility changes, right? So there's a lot of things that can happen. It's not just about the cortisol. It's kind of this chain reaction of things that happen. And this can happen when we're asking our body to do too much late at night, when your melatonin should be rising and your cortisol should be dropping, because your cortisol and your melatonin work in opposition, right? And studies are showing that women who consistently disrupt their circadian rhythm, for example, like night shift workers, which it happens. We need workers who work at night, especially if I'm thinking of like, nurses and doctors and ER, like people who like, we need people who work this, right? But people who consistently disrupt their circadian rhythms are at higher risk for metabolic issues, heart disease, and even hormonal cancers like breast cancer. And I'm going to tell you this. If you're a shift worker listening, you're like, crap, I've got something for you. So stay tuned. I have some tips for you. But I think about this, even I've had clients before where, they were gaining weight, even though they weren't eating more or exercising less, right? But then figuring out, well, I'm eating super late at night, right? I'm eating really late dinner, and it is throwing off your insulin response, which naturally is more sensitive earlier in the day. So it's better to eat earlier in the day, which is why breakfast is really important. And I can't harp on that enough, eating earlier in the day. And when you shift, I'm kind of getting ahead of myself, but when you shift your largest meal to like around midday, around lunchtime, you will start to feel things start to shift in your body, your natural rhythms, your metabolism is going to work in a different way. So how can we work with our body's natural rhythms instead of fighting them? So I want to break down kind of by different parts of the day, morning, midday, evening, and kind of how you can optimize your daily rhythm. So let's think about morning. First thing in the morning, preferably sometime before 9 a.m. I recommend getting natural sunlight. Getting natural sunlight in your eyes technically it's within 30 minutes of waking, but I also know sometimes like me, like I wake up super early so I can go to the gym and then be done. Either I have to be at my studio or I have to take a kid to school or whatever. So it may not be within 30 minutes waking up, but getting sunlight in your eyes, in your eyeballs when it's the morning time, right? This resets your circadian clock and really supports healthy cortisol production. So getting natural sunlight in the morning. And this is especially important for women because cortisol, right? Cortisol, we want that cortisol in the morning. Cortisol affects everything from your metabolism to your menstrual cycle. So we want to get that healthy cortisol production in the morning. We want to get it going so that we're setting yourself up for the rest of the day. So getting some sunlight in your eyeballs in the morning, whether that's, sometimes I do this, I think about this if I'm driving. It's like, let me take my sunglasses off in the morning and try not to squint and get some natural sunlight. So sunlight is going to help reset that circadian rhythm. There's a study published that found that natural light exposure in the morning improves sleep quality, your mood, and your hormonal balance. So there are studies to back this up about getting natural light exposure in the morning. So let's look at midday. Looking at midday, around, noonish or so, at the middle of the day. This is the time where you want to eat your biggest meal, which I've said a couple times now. Your digestion is most efficient during the middle of the day because your body's metabolism is naturally more active, right? It's like it's in the middle of the day, it's still revving and going. Whereas in the evening, it's kind of start to winding down because you should be starting to wind down, right? So for women, eating at this time, their biggest meal of your day can support balanced blood sugar and healthy insulin response, which is key for your hormonal health. It's going to affect a lot of your cortisol and your insulin they work in tandem. And so that's going to help that as well. So if you've ever felt shaky, you get hangry, I'm raising my hand because that's me. It's likely a blood sugar dip, right? And so making sure you're like, especially don't skip it, especially not skimping on lunch or skipping it altogether, but focusing on making that the biggest meal of the day, protein, fiber, healthy fats, all the things to give you energy for the rest of your day and to really optimize your metabolism. So then let's look at the evening, right? Evening, we're looking at like 8 to 10 p.m., right? Using the last couple hours of your day to start winding down. Your body needs to start winding down, so you have to help your body wind down. You've probably hear about, the nighttime routine and whether you're kind of like, whatever. This is why, right? So dimming the lights and, lowering the color on your screen, right? Limiting your exposure to blue light at night. All of this is helping your brain signal to your brain that it's time to slow down, it's time to turn off, and it's time to produce melatonin. Remember, we want cortisol down, we want melatonin up for a good sleep-wake cycle. So for women, this is crucial because poor sleep can lead to higher levels of ghrelin. Ghrelin is the hunger hormone. It's the hormone that tells you that you're hungry, and lower levels of leptin, which is the hormone that signals that you're full. So that hunger, fullness, those hormones are going to be off, which is why a lot of times you might crave carbs after a bad night's sleep, right? It's affecting those hunger hormones and full hormones. So we really want to focus on, and I know I said this in an interview, I guess it was last week. Like, this is not, I feel like this is not the sexy stuff we want to talk about, like make a bedtime routine and, a nighttime routine and blah, blah, blah. We hear it all the time. But I really think we underestimate how much this really does affect our hormones. And I know we want the, tell me what supplement to take and tell me how to boost my progesterone and all these things. But it sometimes it is these simple things. That's why I said at the beginning of this episode, this is like the simplest thing where I'm talking about it and you're like, why are you even talking about this? But we really underestimate it, I think undervalue the power that this can have over how your hormones are actually functioning, especially as we age. Like, this is something we have to really be intentional about as we age. And so even just as the simplest thing, as in, the last 2 hours you're awake from 8 to 10 p.m. or whatever time you go to bed, the last hour or so, doing things, right? Like dimming the lights, making it darker, either avoiding screen, like turning your phone off and be an hour before you go to bed. So you're not looking at your screen before you go to bed, whatever it is, but helping to signal to your body, like, hey, we're winding down. It's about time to go to sleep. It's time for you to produce melatonin so I can get a good night's sleep, right? This is important. So I want to mention a couple tips for my shift workers out there. If you work the night shift, you have friends or family members who work the night shift, or if you're just a night owl, right? Not everybody has the luxury of working during the day or having like a traditional 9 to 5 job, and that's okay. Chronobiology can still work for you. We just have to make a few adjustments. So let's think about light therapy first. If you're a night owl or you work shifts, investing in light therapy and a light therapy box to mimic natural sunlight can be really helpful for you. Using it for like 20 to 30 minutes in the morning to help your body regulate cortisol and melatonin cycles. This is going to help. So you're just kind of tricking your body into it, right? And I know this too. I want to mention this as well, because I've had multiple clients actually who live in a part of the world where the weather is not so great and it's like gloomy and gray for a lot of the year, and you kind of get that seasonal affective disorder, which is like, I'm feeling kind of depressed because there's no sunlight here. This is another thing for you, right? That light therapy really can help. It really does help with regulate your cortisol melatonin cycles, and it helps with just naturally helps with natural production of specific hormones. It's gonna help your mood, and it's gonna help with this chronobiology like we're talking about. So another thing for night owls or shift workers is meal timing. Just really trying to be consistent with your meals, even if your schedule isn't, right? Your body really does thrive on regularity, like being consistent, especially when it comes to digestion and your insulin response. So being as consistent as you can with meals. And I know I have felt this before, and I'm not a night shift worker or a night owl. I'm definitely a morning person, but I have felt this before too, where it just like your schedule gets crazy and you go through periods where it's like, did I eat lunch today? Or you're like, don't want to step away. Your meals just kind of get off, and it really does affect how your hormones are working. It can help you feel more grounded, more energized, even when your life is predictable. And I think that's the other thing to mention too. Like, even when your schedule is all over the place, having that one thing that's consistent can really help your nervous system to feel grounded and like, okay, I have one thing consistent. I know I'm going to eat at these specific times, right? So just doing the best you can with meal timing as a night owl or a shift worker. So last thing here I want to mention is just a few things that we can do, just kind of some actionable steps here. We've already mentioned it, kind of a recap of how you can really start aligning with your body's natural rhythms today. I am just really honing in on this in 2025. with me and with my clients is understanding your body's natural rhythms, hormonal rhythms, energetic rhythms, your natural, right? And your natural energy, which is why I love talking about human design. And you know that if you're listening, all of these, this cyclical living really is how we thrive. And it's how we're meant. I mean, it's the whole reason God made the sun and the moon, right? This is how we're supposed to live. So let's talk about this. Let's kind of recapping here. First of all, I feel like I'm telling you this stuff and it's like I'm telling a child, like, you need to go to bed on time, but really, sometimes you need to parent yourself. I'm just saying, sometimes you need to parent yourself. Set a consistent sleep and wake time. Set a consistent time, even on the weekends. And I know sometimes it'd be hard, you want to stay up late or whatever. And every now and then your body can handle, when we're doing that consistently, staying up late, like every night on the weekend, it really will catch up to you. Your body craves routine. Consistent sleep is going to help regulate cortisol, melatonin, your hunger hormones. I talked about how cortisol is also going to affect your progesterone. It all works together. So having that consistent sleep and wake time is going to be really crucial. And next, tracking your energy patterns. So keeping a journal can be helpful, but looking at when do you feel most energetic and when do you crash, right? When do you feel like you have more energy? And applying that to your schedule, it's going to really help you be able to optimize your schedule because you can identify, where do I have more energy? Am I a morning person, but I'm trying to do all of my work, later in the afternoon? Like, what? Change it, shift it, right? As best you can. Am I trying to make myself work out after work, but I really don't have the energy? Can you shift it so you can work out in the morning, right? Track your energy patterns and see where you're trying to make yourself do something within a certain time, at a certain time when your body's like, I actually really hate this, right? Let's make it better for your body. And then starting your day with sunlight, which I already mentioned. Even just 10 minutes of sunlight in the morning can boost your energy, improve your sleep at night, help with optimizing hormone production, and front load your meals during the day. So shift your largest meal to lunchtime and then try to have 2 to 3 hours before bed, like trying to eat 2 to 3 hours before bed. So trying to have a few hours for your body to digest dinner, your last meal of the day before going to bed. Now, again, I know sometimes it's going to happen that way where, you're busy, 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 going, going, going. You've got kids stuff, meetings, this, that, the other. And it's like, well, I didn't eat till 8 o'clock tonight. That, it's going to happen. But doing, the majority of the time, having that buffer between when you eat dinner, when you go to bed is going to help. And then the last thing I want to say is optimize your lighting at night. So turning, like dimming the lights, maybe you're turning lamps off, but setting this kind of warm, cozy, dark environment at night is really going to help tell your body, and that really does help with that melatonin production, and it turns that on. Blue light blocking glasses, turning your, using that setting on your phone. I guess all phones have this now, right? Where you can make it the night light, whatever that's called. All of that can be helpful. And all of that really is just a signal to your brain to start producing that melatonin to help with that sleep wake cycle. So I know this sounds super basic. Everything I talked about, you're like, yeah, know that. But let's start implementing it, because I think that's the other thing too. A lot of things we talk about with living with your natural rhythms, and even like biohacking things we talk about. It's like, well, yeah, I know that, but a lot of times, it's just about implementing it. And so if you can just take even just those last 5 things that I talked about, just start honing in on those and being intentional about them, it really can shift your hormones. And if you're on your own hormonal journey, this could be where you start, right? It doesn't have to be anything major. It can literally be like, okay, let me optimize this chronobiology. Let me optimize my circadian rhythm and see how my hormones shift naturally by just going back to really honing in on our body's natural biological rhythms. They're there for a reason. And with our hustle bustle culture and go, go, go and Western society, we get away from that, right? We get away from being in touch with nature. We get in away from getting in touch with our natural rhythms. So let's get back to that. I really, really think that this simple concept can really be the thing that can align you with the health that you're looking for, align you with the balance and the flow in your body that you're looking for. It's so simple, but let's just be more intentional about it. So I'd love to know your thoughts and how you feel about really focusing on this chronobiology and focusing on how this can help optimize your hormones. Let me know what you try out for yourself, how it's working, and I'll see you next time.
Thanks for listening to Hopeful and Wholesome, y'all. If you found value in this week's episode, please subscribe on iTunes or wherever you listen to your podcast and leave a review to let me know what you thought. I'd love to know what you find useful in these episodes so I can know how to provide the most value I can to my listeners. And if you have topics you'd like to know more about, I'd love to hear those as well. So shoot me a message on Instagram, Facebook, or LinkedIn. It's @TheHopePedraza, or you can visit my website, hopefulandwholesome.com. Thanks, y'all.